Hello, everybody. This is Brian David Johnson, the guest editor of the IEEE Computer Magazine, the special issue on the world of making. And to pull together the different inputs and viewpoints for this issue, we went out and looked for a wide range of people who were doing work in biology or design or science, people who were working in business and technology and entertainment, people who were striving to change entertainment or just broadly looking at what making meant to our culture in general. But the whole point of this was to really gather a snapshot, to say, here is what making looks like in the year 2014. And I think we're really, really lucky today to have Crystal Beasley on the podcast. Crystal is a maker, she is a CEO, she is a designer, she is a change agent. Crystal has been doing some really interesting work in how we can change how fashion is made, and I think even how businesses are put together. So Crystal Beasley, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Brian.
So Crystal, you have a pretty wide background, and your path to making has been, on one hand, quite simple, and on the other hand, quite circuitous. You've kind of come around to this in many different ways. For the audience, can you give them a little bit of your background and then also how you came to making?
So, yeah, what's very straightforward is that I've been a designer of one stripe or another for the past 15 years. But what seems circuitous is all the different things that I've designed. I think I've gotten just about a smattering of everything from local county government to a pie cart to an umbrella company, even I Can Have Cheeseburger being a lawcat herder. It turns out design is relevant to most of everything on the web. And
so what brought you to QCut? What brought you to slow fashion?
So I was in Cambodia last winter. I spent 3 months there, and I wanted to go and volunteer, and I wanted to volunteer those same design services. So a friend put me in contact with a social marketing agency there that needed help building better experiences in the nonprofit world. And I was there living in Phnom Penh, the capital city. And I just became acquainted with the realities of the global garment production. I was on the other side of the world and the other side of reality of what it meant to buy that $10 dress on the sale rack. It turns out that the only way that that's possible is if there are people in Cambodia making about $3 a day. And the reason that it was an issue there is because the garment workers union was protesting for an increase from $3 a day to $7 a day. And there were soldiers out in front of my apartment every day when I would walk to work. There was the reality of what the cost is in terms of people.
And one of the things that I've always found very fascinating about the work that you do, Crystal, is you do have a deep commitment to using your skills, using your labor and your work, and using making to actually make real social change, to actually make the lives of people better. When did you start doing that, and what do you think you've been able to accomplish as you've been going through and doing that?
Well, thanks. I think that being in Cambodia, the sorts of projects that we were working on was everything from sanitation projects to how do moms feed their babies better. And being a designer, probably a lot of people assume that I push pixels around on a website. And as important as that is, the most important kind of design for me is making sure that A, we're solving problems that humans care about, and that B, people can actually use the thing that you make. So the types of projects that we were doing were essentially behavior change problems. It's not that moms in Cambodia don't know to feed their kids better. It's not an education problem. It's actually empathizing with them deeply to understand their lives and what their challenges are.
So now you came back from Cambodia, and you and I had sat down, and you had told me that you had this idea about slow fashion, that you had taken what you had seen and you had brought it back, and you had this idea that we could really rethink and remake the fashion industry and the garment industry. What was your idea behind that?
So the moment that I knew that I was onto something with trying to take on the fit problem was when I talked to, I don't know, probably the 10th woman that said almost word for word the same sentence, "I'm hard to fit." I knew that we were onto something in terms of making fashion in a brand new way. It's a little bit hard to wrap your mind around why things are the way they are with the way we buy clothing today. But in short, it's because if we want to buy clothing really cheaply, we actually have to make it in large volumes. And those large volumes and distribution system that we have right now makes it cheaply very, very well. But it doesn't deal with a sizing system complex enough to account for all the different body shapes that people come in.
And so you came up with the idea for QCut, the idea a jeans company that will make jeans for women of all sizes. What is the idea behind QCut, and where are you in the development of it?
So I was fortunate to be introduced to my now business partner, Gerald Ruderman, who's an MIT undergrad and grad, and he developed a system for Levi's several years ago, and some of those patents have now expired, so he's back at it again. We have the great luxury of knowing that we have an algorithm that can accurately fit women based on just a few measurements, and we are funding our Kickstarter right now. We're just about 80% of the way funded, and we're only a couple of days after launch, so it's almost certain that we'll fund, but we'd like to continue to raise money enough that we can build our own factory, because that really is, going back to what I was saying earlier about production in Cambodia, the production issues are a core piece of solving this problem, so we need to own our own factory.
So with your project, you are, number one, changing how clothing and garments are made, but also your goal is to also change where clothing is made as well, because those two things go hand in hand for their impact not only on the workers and the environment and sort of where they're built, but also on the people that it's being made for. And so what you're saying is that if it's going to be made halfway around the world and made cheaply, that means that it doesn't fit so well. It has to be made for a very generalized size. But then also to get that cost down, the workers and just the sustainability of the labor force as well as the local environment has an impact. So what you're trying to do with QCut is to change both of those things.
Right. It's funny. Solving this problem of sizing really does demand the manufacturing side to change, as well as having this direct-to-consumer online platform. But a core piece of it is that the garment is not made for you until you order it. And this means that the shipping times are now quite critical. It's not that I don't want to make my clothing in Cambodia. I could have a factory there and keep very good control of the labor conditions, perhaps, if I employed the right oversight people. But what it wouldn't allow me to do is to ship to a customer in Akron, Ohio in a matter of a couple days. So the future that I'm seeing is local clothing, very much like Slow Food emphasizes local eating. We want to have those smaller little pod factories close to wherever the customer is.
Yeah, and I think you really hit it when you described it as the notion of slow fashion, and that really QCut and your Kickstarter is really that first step, is moving to a different way of making and imagining clothing and fashion for the future. So, Crystal, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. If people want to get more information on you and the work that you're doing or about QCut, where should they go to? So
our website is QCut.com, QCUT.com, and there's a link there to our Kickstarter, and that's the best spot.
And you are right in the middle of Kickstarter, and it should be said that Kickstarter is also a different way of making businesses, right? If folks haven't had a chance to go and take a look at that, go and have a look at QCut, and also look at some of the other Kickstarter campaigns. It's a different way of funding and making businesses, and it's making some pretty massive change and ripples in the world of business. But Crystal Beasley, I want to thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for your article that you've done for us. I'm just a huge fan of the work that you're doing, but I really, really appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Brian.